3 times throughout my life, I considered suicide. The first, I was 12 years old, and I had gotten an F in math, which was my least favorite subject. And my cousin, my older cousin Travis, I called him up, because I remember he had gotten an F in math or in the subject, and he had changed it to a B. So I needed this trick. So I called him up like, hey, Trav, I got an F in math. I don't want to get in trouble. And he said, okay, I got you, cuz. He said, look, our report cards are on carbon paper. So you just need a pencil, real fine pencil. I don't know if y'all remember, but carbon paper is what our report cards used to come on with the black sheet on one side. And so in the real light gray in the writing. So I took a pencil and he said, not too fine. You got to wear it a little bit so it's not too straight. And make the B an F, and then take the paper, the carbon, and kind of wipe it. And it'll take the shine off the pencil. And I said, oh, okay. So sure enough, change the F to a B, present my mother with this beautiful report card with this B in math. And she praises me. She is so proud of me. She is so excited because she knew I knew, math isn't my subject. So my mother comes to the school. Math is my first block, my first hour. And now I've been in there chilling. It's the end of the school year, y'all, spring, end of the school year. I have deceived her every 6 months for the entire school year. So I'm in math class chilling. I ain't done no work all year. The teacher passed out some work, I sit there. I don't gotta do it, I already know what I'm doing. I got a B in your class, right? So my mother shows up, so I'll never forget, I'm sitting in the classroom, and the whole time my math teacher is just smiling at me all morning. Knock on the door. She goes to the door and she's smiling at me. I'm smiling at her too. My mom looked in the door and looked at me and said, I'll see you at home. Rest of the day, shot is how I looked, rest of the day. Scared. I made it, y'all. I didn't kill myself, and she didn't kill me either. I'm still here. The second time that I wanted to take my life, I had my second child. Springtime again. And I got 2 car seats, double stroller, double everything, right? I am out of my mind. They are 1.5 years apart, diapers, I had a cooler in the back of the truck. I am out of my mind, right? And I had heard through my first pregnancy and my second about postpartum depression and how real it was and how you're gonna feel like your life is over. Nobody cares about you, it's all about the baby. Yeah, well, okay. And so I didn't quite experience that in that same way the first time, because it just was 1. The second time with 2, oh. And I just felt like I couldn't explain it. I couldn't explain how I felt because all the women that had prepared me to be a mother, all the Black women that had prepared me to be a mother never talked about being depressed or sad or feeling anything other than love and strength and what you need to do to sustain the life of your child. So I wasn't prepared for all the emotions I felt the second time. And I had nobody to talk to about it. And I didn't even realize what it was. And one day, so I am driving and I'm in my truck with the big truck. Now I drove sports cars all my life, had kids. Now I'm in this big truck. So I'm in this truck, double car seats, double everything, cooler in the back. And I am driving in Arizona and I am on the freeway and I can veer off or I can keep straight. And if I veer off, then I get on to the next freeway to go wherever I'm going. But if I keep straight, there is a brick building, huge brick building. And I know I'm supposed to be veering off, but all I see is this brick building, and I'm like, this is it. I am tired. I'm about to go. I'm just gonna keep straight. I'm going a good 69, about 70. I gotta slow up to go around this curve, but I'm gonna hit this wall. I'm running into this building. And I'm serious. And something made me look up in my rearview mirror. So I look up in my rearview mirror and my babies are in the back seat. And I remember I looked up in the mirror and I said, damn, I can't even kill myself because of y'all asses. Love saved me again. The third time I considered killing myself was 10 years later. I was going through what I would say was my awakening, but it didn't feel like that then. Felt like the end of my life, absolutely. So, divorce from my husband of 13 years, 3 babies later, 15 years we were together. Lost a job, lost my house, relocated back to Anderson, Indiana, my hometown. Just a country girl from Indiana. But I vowed when I left there, I was never going back. Except to visit, and successfully. Well, now I'm going home. I don't even got my babies with me. They in Arizona with their dad. And I'm home, get home, and lost everything. Or so I thought. And find out that I had stage 3 breast cancer. What? So this is a bad time, and I'm still doing storytelling events with Lex. I'm still living my life. I'm still, you never know that this was, how, all this stuff was going on in my life. And so I'm at a storytelling event actually in Silver Lake, California. So we're in this beautiful home up in the mountains, right? So that's where we're staying, gorgeous. You come out, it's in the mountain, you gotta drive all the way up. You walking you get up there and it's a beautiful view. You can see Silver Lake over to the bright, every day. We're there for days, about 4 nights maybe. And so I'm going out, sitting on the balcony, looking out, forecasting, praying, getting ready. And one night I'm laying in the bed and I wake up out of nowhere, just suddenly, boom, eyes open, ceiling, looking up. And everything in me says, Star, go jump off the balcony. This is it. And so I'm like, oh shit, 100% committed though. And so I swaddle myself. I try to put the cover around me to hold me in the bed. And that didn't work. The feeling didn't go anywhere. So there was a restroom about 3 feet to my right. I literally rolled. I can't stand up, y'all. If I stand up, I'm walking out there. So I rolled out of the bed, literally rolled, boom, hit the floor. Lay there, thinking, okay, maybe they did knock some damn sense in me. Nope. So I can't stand up. I crawl on my elbows, the little 3 feet to the restroom. On my way, grab my lifeline, which was my phone. Get in there, close the door, lock it, and I'm up against the door, and I'm like, who am I gonna call? Crying, who am I gonna call? Who love me enough, because I don't love myself enough right now. And I thought of my friend Jenny. She was, I think, in Dubai at the time, which she's in the UAE right now, and there's a 12-hour difference. So if it's 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, that means 3 o'clock p.m., 2 o'clock her time. So I text her, WhatsApp her, I need you right now, right now. She called me. If you know anything about them charges, being over there, she called me because she knew I don't ever ask for help. She called me and I said, Jenny, this is it. I'm gonna kill myself. I can't, I'm tired of being tired, this is it. She says, Star, you are at the beginning of the most beautiful part of your life. You cannot do this. And I'm still, Jenny, you don't understand. You can't. And then she triggered my inner mountain goat, my inner Capricorn, my inner competitive spirit, my inner baller. And she called me a punk. She said, quit being a punk. You being a punk. Get your punk ass up. And just that. As simple, it was just as simple and lightweight mean as that was, it was profound for me. Because I said to her immediately, I said, who are you calling a punk? Right, what? So I get up and she, we talk and laugh and cry. I stay there for 2 hours. Next thing I knew, Lex was knocking on the door because she was there. You sorry, okay, I got to use the restroom. By then, I was all right. I was scared. My legs were weak. I remember getting up and walking and being like, oh shit, like, I got to get up. So I make it through that. But the whole rest of the time, I don't go nowhere near that damn balcony. Nowhere near the balcony. Till the end, my last night there, I do the show. Everything, I don't say anything. But every time I get up to walk anywhere near that balcony, I'm on the wall like, trying to stay away from the balcony, right? I won't even look at it. Because the urge hadn't quite gone away. I was still fearful. So my last night, I say, okay, yep, I'm going out there. So I go to the door, I etch to the door, I get to the door, I open it. But it was dark. I said, shit, nope. I'm gonna go tomorrow when it's daylight. So the next morning, sure enough, as soon as the sun came up, I said, you know what, Star, I'll go out there. I'll walk out on the balcony, get out there. So I sit down on the couch where I've been. And I said, nope, that ain't good enough. Star, go over there to the damn edge of the balcony. You gotta go to the edge. You gotta go to the edge. So I get over there, go to the edge, scared. I'm like, shit. Whew. I look down. I be damn. 2 stories, y'all. 2 stories. If I'd have jumped, I'd have failed 2 stories. I would have been in the ER, not the ICU, the ER. And I looked down, and I was so tickled. I said, I be damn, look. I'd have been injured, not dead. God knew. God knew. I would have had to explain why everybody sitting in the kitchen saw my ass jump down 2 stories. I would have had to be Superman. See, I'm in the mountain, y'all. I don't know no better. I don't live in no damn mountain, right? I'm thinking it's the edge. No, I'd had to fly through the trees like Superman to get to a drop off to kill myself. God had a sense of humor. And again, love saved me.
Okay, so this particular story in my life began about the 11th grade of high school. At the time, a lot of friends around me was taking pre-SAT courses, and they were trying to determine where they were going to go to college. And I knew for sure that college wasn't going to be in my immediate future. Number one, we didn't have the funds for it. Number two, at that time, there was only 2 years of math required for the minimum to graduate. I was struggling with algebra and pre-algebra, so I knew anything beyond that was probably unrealistic. So I decided to go into law enforcement. I'd heard some things and ended up calling around different states, Philadelphia, New York, Atlanta. I had actually passed every curriculum, psych test and everything for Atlanta PD, and at the last minute that fell through. At that point, I was kind of at a loss. I could not go to Houston Police Department, which is where I was from, because they, again, had added some things to their requirements, some of which being 2 years of college. Somebody suggested to me, hey, how about Harris County Sheriff's Department? I had never heard of Harris County Sheriff's Department because they patrolled and functioned in unincorporated Harris County, and I was a product of inner city, so all I knew was the city police. Long story short, I ended up going down to Harris County Sheriff's Department, filled out an application on May of '89, and in 6 months after that, I was hired on to become a Harris County Deputy Sheriff. They paid for me to go through the academy, which was at the time a 3-month long program. The academy was about 55 to 60 miles away from where I lived. I was married, I was 21 years old. I had a 6-month-old daughter. I had a little bitty piece of a car that had to drive that long distance every day. I was put through every type of physical activity and mental restraints and confrontations. And it was so stressful at the time that there was many times where I'd get home just in time to eat something real quick, and then I had to do homework, which would take another 3 or 4 hours. I had to learn the penal code. And oftentimes I'd get up and I'd throw that book across the room and say, I'm quitting. But after I got that out of my system, I'd go pick the book back up, get back to it, and do what needed to be done. Graduated from the academy, at first with the impression in my mind that I was going to go in there and be valedictorian of the academy. And after a few weeks in there, I realized I just hope I make it through, okay? But when I did graduate, I graduated in what they called the super squad, which was those who were the elite of that class. We were the most physically fit. We were the most high scoring on all the exams. We shot the most accurately and we ran the fastest and all of that type of stuff. So I was full of ego by the time I graduated that academy. I was a 32 waist. I could run 7 miles and I was in the most physically fit condition I'd ever been in. So when they put me on the streets of Harris County, I was out to prove that I was the man. They put me in one of the most crime-filled areas, if you will, that you could think of. They had everything from prostitution to drugs to family violence calls and everything else. And not only did they put me in that area, but they put me in that area on the night shift. And so every day was a different adventure. Every day was either a fight, a chase, or something scary, and I was loving it all. People were beginning to know who I was in that neighborhood, and I would drive through certain crack-infested areas, sometimes just to see them run, because I knew they were going to take off running once they saw that patrol car come down the street. I was so ate up with myself and so full of ego that one night I pulled down this dark alleyway. You got to remember, this was, at this time, it was about 1994. There was no GPS. There were few officers on the street. If you didn't tell dispatch where you were, no one knew where you were. And at the time, we didn't have a lot of officers on the street. It might have been 3 officers per 50-mile radius. And so I went out down this alleyway to entertain myself, to be honest, and see people run, because that's how full of pride I was. And when I pulled down this dark alleyway, I didn't go out on the radio. Nobody knew where I was or what I was doing. Well, I saw 3 guys sitting over by this Section 8 housing project, and they were sitting on an AC unit. And they saw me, and I saw them, but the difference is they didn't run. And so I took that as an offense. I took that as a challenge. How dare you not run from me? I'm the big bad police. So I pull over, I get out of my car. Again, no one knows where I am. It's about 3 o'clock in the morning. And I approach these 3 young guys sitting on the side of this wrought iron fence. And I asked them, do you not know who I am? And one of them spoke up and said, yeah, we know exactly who you are. I said, well, if you knew who I was, then you'd be running by now. And the other one said to me, well, we know who you are, but we also know that if you didn't have that badge and that gun, you wouldn't be all of what everybody claims you are. I said, really? Is that what you think? So at that time, I took my gun out of my holster and I sat it on the AC unit. I took my badge off of my shirt and I set it next to the gun. And I backed up and I said, no badge, no gun. Here I am. You want to find out whether I am what you say I'm not? They didn't do anything. In fact, they said, man, you tripping. You must be crazy. I said, that's right, I am crazy. I said, tonight I'm going to let you make it, because it's too late in the night and I don't feel like doing all this paperwork. But tomorrow when I come through here, if you don't run, it's going to be a different story. They took me up on it. I put my gun back in my holster, badge back on my shirt, went patrolling the rest of the shift, thinking I had done something just so phenomenal. Oh man, I am the man. It wasn't until years later that God revealed to me that was one of the stupidest things I could have ever done. My life could have ended that very night. Not only could those 3 have jumped me and done something, not only did I know if they had something, but it could have been some more people around the corner. And I just didn't know. So I go to patrol in this neighborhood and my ego is still kicked in and I'm still making these arrests. I'm still arresting 3 and 4 people at one time by myself. Nobody can tell me that I'm not the man. Over the course of time, I began to get hardened in my heart. And I used to say things like, man, they need to just burn this block up. Wouldn't nobody miss them? They need to burn this block up with fire. So years go on down the road. I continue to patrol that area. I began to move around to different areas. And while I'm still working with the sheriff's department, still doing what I was doing, still making it all about me, God began to speak to me. And in his sovereign and mysterious humor, he decided to call me to preach the gospel of Jesus Christ. And I asked him many a times, are you sure you want to call me? Not only was it a surprise to me, but it was a surprise to most people that I had worked it over the course of the years. But eventually I gave into that call. Now in my mind, calling to preach, I had these big pretty pews in mind, and I had stained glass windows in mind, and I can wear some nice suits on Sunday. But again, with that humor of God's, when he called me to preach, after I surrendered to the calling, he ended up sending me under the tutelage and mentorship of a pastor who ran a homeless ministry in the middle of Roots Park, which is a park in downtown Houston, which is full of drug addicts, prostitutes, violence, and any other thing you can think of. Now, this pastor every Sunday would go to this park and he would feed these people great meals that he would prepare by himself. And he would feed them sandwiches before, and then we would preach the word, and then he would feed them the great meal. But during the preaching, somebody might be having sex over on that corner. Somebody might be fighting over there. People running back and forth, gambling, shooting up. Which is why I can preach anywhere indoors today. It doesn't faze me, because if you could preach in that atmosphere, you could preach anywhere. But all the while I was preaching, I was also packing. And when the food would be served, I would see the people complaining about what the pastor was feeding them. Man, we had this same stuff last week. When are you going to get something new on the menu? And I would get furious. And I would check, man, how you going to be mad because you eating something that you ate last week when if he wasn't here, you wouldn't eat it all? And my pastor would get mad at me. And he said, no, Reverend, you need to watch yourself. He said, these are not your people. These are God's people. It's not for you to determine how they react. All you need to be concerned about is what we're here for, and that's to serve. Well, that blew my mind. My heart was just that callous. If you can't say thank you, I'm not going to fool with you. And he would tell me again, look, I don't need the policeman. I need the preacher. So over the course of time and watching him serve and watching these things unfold as they were, God began to soften my heart. And I'm still working with the sheriff's department. I was during the weekend and on Wednesdays doing ministry and doing police work all the rest of the week. And people would ask me, how are you able to be a preacher and a policeman, thinking that they're supposed to be conflicting vocations? And I said, well, actually, it actually helps me to be a better police officer. Well, in the meantime, while I'm still working with the sheriff's department, I leave that particular ministry for a while and I go and start my own church. I'm pastoring one church until an opportunity comes where they say, hey, we want you to come pastor our church. Now here's that sense of humor of God's again. I accept the offer, but it's a church and a pastoral position over a drug and alcohol rehabilitation facility, where all of those same people that I dealt with in the very beginning of my career, and later on after I began preaching in the park, now they're in a confined ministry where everything is taking place inside the facility that used to take place on the street that used to infuriate me. I'd go to church sometimes, and right after having a great Bible study, have to break up a fight in the parking lot. I'd have to tell them, if I have to come in here and y'all fighting in this sanctuary one more time, I'm gonna take you to jail myself. I'd pull up sometimes while I was at work to check on the ministry while I was in the patrol car in uniform. I'd pull up and my own congregation would take off running until somebody say, oh, no, it's all right. That's just pastor, y'all. That's just pastor. He cool. I go to church and people would find out, first of all, they'd see on my hip that gun, because I'm still packing now. I have to, it's the law. And they see that gun and they'd be whispering, the new people would be whispering, who is that? Like, oh, that's Pastor Morales, he the police. And half of them would love me and the other half be mean mugging me the whole time I'm preaching. They'd be looking at me like, I don't like the law. And I'd be looking at them like, okay, yeah, I'm the preacher, but I got passed too. So we can do this one or two ways. Make it easy on yourself so I know which way to go. Right hand Bible, left hand, So anyway, I served there as a pastor for a long time. We developed some great relationships. I'm no longer the pastor over there, but matter of fact, as recently as Resurrection Sunday, I was over there preaching the Easter message, and it was all love. During my ministries and policing at the same time, I told you I used to say, they need to burn this block up with fire. God spoke to me one day when I passed down some of those same streets, and he said, you remember how you used to want me to burn this place up with fire? He said, I want you to burn it up with my word. I said, are you serious? He said, I'm dead serious. And so those very streets that I used to go and have fights with and pursuits with and take crack off the streets and domestic violence and wanted to burn it up to get rid of it, now I was called to be an agent of change. And so I would go out there on Sundays now, sometimes by myself, sometimes my wife and my kids, and I would set up a little podium and a little microphone stand, and I would preach the gospel on those streets, trying to burn it up with the word of God. And some of those same people in that housing project would come out and they would listen, and they'd even give what they could as an offering, and I looked at God and I said, wow, this is great. This is who knew? Long story short, I ended up continuing to preach, continuing to work. And after 31 years of service, it came time for me to retire. And I was so ready to retire. I was so done with all of that. I was going to retire, never look back, go fishing, have a good time, enjoy life. After all, I did what I was supposed to do there. I've been faithful in the ministry over here. Now it's my season. So I retire, and I said, I'm going to give myself 3 months. I retired in November. And I said, in January, I'm going to put some pen to paper. I'm going to get some new ministry ideas. We're going to go at it this way, that way. And 3 months after I was ready to get back to working in ministry with something concrete, we had a major freeze in Houston, and all my pipes burst, and my house was completely destroyed, all except for the master bedroom. I had to be dislocated, moved out of my house for 6 months, me and my family. Okay, all the while I feel like I'm grasping at straws and not really sure what direction the ministry was going, not sure why, this and that was going on. But once I get back to the house, it'll be smooth sailing from there. God's got me, everything is cool. Get back to the house. Wife is dealing with severe illnesses. Things began to pile up. The pandemic hit. Isolation. Now she can't go nowhere. Now her mental state is fragile. Her physical state is fragile. I'm on pins and needles having to make sure that she's okay, that nothing is going to happen, that depression doesn't take over my household. Still trying to do ministry, still trying to stay in the word and be encouraged. She gets better. And the better she got, the worse I got. To the point where I became very irritable. I don't do big crowds. Most of the time when I'm standing somewhere, I'm standing with my arms folded, always on alert. And people started telling me, and I can't sleep. I can't tell you today when the last time I had a good night's sleep was. And when I do get to sleep, it's nightmares of all sorts. But more recently, from work, things that happened 20 years ago, 30 years ago, brand new. seen death in every kind of way you can see it. From homicide to suicide, natural murder, any way you name it, I've seen it. And now I'm seeing it again. People convince me to go talk to somebody. Get you some help. Nothing wrong with talking to somebody. So I decide, okay, well, if I'm gonna talk to somebody, it's gonna be a Christian counselor. So I go to my insurance, I go to the website, and I start looking at different profiles. But I was looking at it from a wrong perspective, and I had some superficial ideas, and no, can't talk to him. Not gonna talk to her. She look mean. He can't tell me nothing. I could tell him anything and he'd believe it. I finally just settled on one lady, and she was cool. We talked a little bit and we connected a little bit, and she diagnosed me with PTSD. And I said, really? Evidently, everything that I had dealt with over the course of years, I had not properly dealt with it emotionally. That's not what I do. And now that I had all this free time, when I'm thinking it's going to be my season, as it were, I'm having to hash through all of these emotions and feelings and pent up aggressions. Well, this therapist became unavailable and we really didn't click, so I stopped going to her until it began to get worse again. My wife said, you need to go talk to somebody. So I did the same thing this time. I'm looking through profiles, see who's easy to look at, who might not tell me what I want to hear. And nothing was settling in my spirit until I came across this one profile, and it read good. It said deals with PTSD and stress and anger management and all of these types of things, all of which I was dealing with, but it didn't have a picture. And I'm not just gonna go sit up and talk to somebody if I don't even know what they look like. I need to know what I'm looking at. Finally, I gave in. And I said, God, if this is who I'm supposed to talk to, just let me know and work it out. I go and I make my first appointment, and I go in and I meet with this therapist. She's a younger woman. She's middle-aged, not too young, not too old. She's pregnant, but she is so cool. And she allows me to talk with no judgment, and she feels real, and it's strange. I just felt like she felt me. And after that first session, I fell in love. I was like, this is it. And matter of fact, I like her so much that me and my wife, when we talked, I told her, I got to go see my baby mama next week. That's my baby's mama. Because that's how easily we connect. And she says, yeah, okay, well, all of this and do this and do that. She says, I'm gonna disagree with your first therapist who said you had PTSD. That would mean you are dysfunctional. And obviously you are still functional, but you do have postpartum stress syndrome, which means you are dealing with it and you can cope with it. And there are exercises that you can do in order to function more prosperously, if you will. And I start thinking, man, this is so cool. How is it that she can relate to me the way she does? Well, in our conversation one day, it comes up, her husband is actually a Houston Police Department SWAT officer. And so God, all along the way, knowing exactly what I needed, who I needed, where I needed to be, sent me to this woman without me even seeing a picture, in spite of my own reservations. And she can relate to me because she's living with another person who's going through the same thing I do. And so while I don't get down that this is not the misconceived season that people oftentimes think is supposed to come when you are faithful in your service to God or elsewhere, while everything is not smiles and songs every day, I still have hope, because God still gives me nuggets to let me know I'm still in control. I still got you, and there's still more ahead. And that's why I go from day to day, and that's why I'm here right now. And that's my story.
I was born to a teenage mother who at the age of 14, she had given birth to her first child. At age 16, she gave birth to my brother, my twin brother and I. And by the time she was 20 years old, she had 5 children and had been married twice. Needless to say, my mother dropped out of school to take care of her children. So she didn't have a lot of formal education. But I'll say my mother had a PhD in streetology. The woman knew how to make money, she knew how to hustle. I grew up as a troubled child. I was a troubled child, always in trouble, in and out of juvenile, getting suspended from schools. And at the age of 6, the first time I ran away from home. So my mother's boyfriend, he was a drug dealer. He was very abusive. And since I stayed in so much trouble, I was often the object of his abuse. So at age 6, I remember going to the store, and my brother then was hollering out the store. My mother sent me to the store to get some bread. And this was a store that used to give my mother credit because we was on welfare. So they would give her credit until she get her food stamps at the first of the month. But my twin brother was hollering, give me something too, because I would go in this store and steal all the time, right? And so I go into the store and I get my little powdered donuts and things like that. And my mother, she heard my brother say that. And you can look out on our back porch and you can look straight up over to the store and you can see the store in direct sight. So when I was walking back from the store eating my donuts, I had my brother cookies in my pocket, I'm eating my donut, my mother called me Red. I look up and I'm startled. I take the donuts and I throw them up under the bushes as though she wasn't gonna see me. I come home, she say, what the hell you been doing? I say, nothing. She grabbed me by my neck and took me to the mirror. I had white powder all on my face. I haven't got to wipe my face off, right? She said, she marched me right back up to the store. And because this man had been so nice to us, giving us credit until she get her food stamps at the first of the month, she made me apologize to the man and everything. And we got home, she got a wire clothes hanger. And she opened it up, she said, I'm finna beat your... I said, oh man. Fate intervened and she had to go pee. She used the bathroom. She went to the bathroom, I went out the back door. And I was going through the alley. I'm like, she ain't finna hit me with no coat hanger. I'm gone. I had been used to getting abused like that, right? So I'm running. I'm in the street, I'm 6 years old. I leave, this about 8:30 in the morning. I stay out all day. I go to local stores. I literally eat dinner in stores. I got juice in this aisle, opened up. I got cookies in this aisle, opened up. I open up bread, and I'm going out each aisle, eating my food in the store, so they can't say I'm stealing. What the evidence at? I done ate everything. So I leave this store, I'm walking through the street, I go past what we call the host road in St. Louis where the pimps and the prostitutes hung out there. I was fascinated with the street life. 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm going to a liquor store, finna go in there and steal again. And I see the man behind the counter, and he looked at me and he disappeared, so I'm like, I'm finna go. I got a bag of chips. And I see somebody grab me like this. He grabbed the back of my collar and I kind of lifted up. He said, boy, they been looking for you. I go in on the news. I was all on the news. Like, we were a 6-year-old boy, he missing and everything. So the man, he was nice. He gave me the chips free, gave me some juice. He called my mother and them, called the police. My mother came in the police car down to the liquor store. And she seen me and she just hugged me and she cried. She said, oh my God, I thought you was dead. I was gone all day from 8 a.m. to 3 a.m. the next morning at 6 years of age. I kept getting in trouble. It didn't stop. I kept on getting in trouble, kicked up out of school, suspended here. By the age of 14 years old, I wound up stealing some of my mother's drugs, snorting dope. In high school, they called me snorting dope. They wound up putting me into a drug rehabilitation center for teens. I go into the drug rehabilitation center, that's the first time that they told me I was a CD alcoholic. I was chemically dependent, that's what they told me. I was a CD alcoholic. And they said you was dependent on drugs, and I just snorted a little bit. I thought I was Scarface. I was saying the movie, I wanted to be a gangster. I thought if I snorted some dope, I could have some guns, have some women. I didn't think I was no drug addict or nothing. It just 1 or 2 times I've done that, right? But I was in the drug rehab and had just got up out of juvenile 3 weeks prior to that. Well, when I got out of drug rehab, one of my uncles, he gave me a cassette tape of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And that tape had really affected my thinking. Now, during this time, I had seen psychotherapists, I had seen counselors. My mother took me to a mental hospital because she said, this boy got to be crazy as hell because I whooped his butt. He do the same thing tomorrow that I just beat him for yesterday. So in her mind, I was insane. So she took me to a mental hospital. So I had seen all these counselors and everything, but what the minister said on that tape affected me. It affected my thinking. It didn't make me change all of a sudden, but it affected my thinking. So I'm steady in and out of trouble again. By the time I'm 16 years old, I wind up getting into a lot of trouble. And I'm facing 50 years to life in penitentiary. And they wind up giving me, I had 48 years total, and they combined it all to a 10-year sentence. So I went to prison at the age of 17, maximum security prison, and didn't get out till I was 24 years old. During that time, I spent 48 months in solitary confinement, 6 different penitentiaries, and I've seen the most horrific things that you can ever imagine happen to young people. When I went to prison, in maximum security prison in Missouri at that time, it was only 3 or 4 guys under 21 years old, young black men, that was in maximum security prison, and I was one of them. When I got out 7 years later, probably 60% of everybody coming in was 18, 19, some of them 14, 15 years old, because gang violence and drugs had saturated the community. Well, when I was in prison, I became robotic. So, my mother, if your daughter got pregnant at a young age, hell, call Cherry. She knew exactly what to do about it. She was an OG at getting pregnant. She had 5 children by the age of 20. And I also like to joke to say, if your electricity got cut off, call Cherry. That woman know how to cut your electricity back on. My mother was the go-to person in the hood. But when I got locked up, my mother wasn't there for me. I used to collect calls from the Department of Correction. Click. Damn, this my mom. I write letters. Never got a response. I'm calling again, collect call from the Department of Click. I'm like, damn, why mom ain't answer? I grew up seeing you there for everybody. So I grew a bit of hatred towards my own mother, and I became robotic. If my mother would have been killed by a serial killer when I was locked up, if she'd have been chopped up and eaten by Jeffrey Dahmer, if I would have cried, and that's a big if, I would have cried because my logic tell me to cry. Logic would tell me, that's your mother, you should feel something. But emotionally, I was disconnected from everybody on the outside world because the person I relied on most wasn't there for me. So I go through all these trials and tribulations in penitentiary, and then when I come out, my mother and my little brother come pick me up from prison, and it was an awkward moment. I remember walking out of prison, I was happy to be free, but my mother was there who I grew a hatred for. I don't even like you no more because I called you and you didn't answer. I wrote you and you didn't respond back. So in my mind, I don't even like you, but you my mother, and I'm happy to be out, right? So that car ride home from prison, it was very awkward. I'm looking at birds, I'm looking at dogs, and I remember we stopped at a gas station, and I ain't seen a dog in years, and I'm like, this was like a Rottweiler or something. He like looking at me like, dude, but I just want to see a dog, And so we get home, and over the years, after I got out, my mother, I found out that she was struggling with crack addiction. Right? And so she was in and out of rehab, which I didn't know that. I went to prison knowing the strong Cherry, the one that was there for everybody, the one that carried pistols, the one that would fight people. I didn't know the crack addicted, crackhead Cherry. I didn't know that woman right there. But when I came home, I realized that she was struggling with drug addiction. I heard the stories from my other brothers and them and my sister that she was struggling with drug addiction. So over the years, the hatred was still on the inside of me. And I remember one time I heard a lecture from, again, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan talking about atonement. And he said that if somebody do you wrong, go to that person, point out the wrong, and to correct it, where you won't have that hatred and that bitterness on your heart. And I remember calling my mama after I heard the minister say that. I said, Mom, I want to come talk to you. And I remember going to my mama's house, and I'll never forget this day. She was frying some chicken. She had some macaroni and cheese and some rice. And I'm thinking to myself, damn, do I tell her before I get my plate or after I get my plate what's on my heart, right? And then, but I tell her, I say, Mama, what's up? She gave me a kiss. She said, what's going on, babe? I said, I want to talk to you. She said, what's going on? I say, Mama, I hate you. My mother looked at me. She put her hands on that skillet of grease, that hot chicken, and in her mind, now this Cherry from the hood that'll go upside your head, carry pistols. And I said, hold on, because in my mind, she had to kind of look like, I don't know if my son had lost his damn mind, but he come up in the trip, up and throw this hot grease in his face and bust his head with this cast iron skillet. That's how the look she had on her face. I said, hold on, let me tell you why. I said, Mama, when I got locked up, you wasn't there. I called you, you didn't answer my calls. I wrote you, you didn't respond to me. Mom, I needed you. Damn, you was my mother. I sent you there for everybody in the hood. You put your life on the line for everybody. But when I called you, you wasn't there. But what my mother said to me blew my damn mind. My mother looked at me with tears in her eyes, and she said, son, when you got locked up, it wasn't nothing I can do about it. I called lawyers, people in the street connections, was nothing getting you up out of that. You was going to penitentiary. And because I wasn't the most religious person, I didn't start praying. I started smoking crack to escape the pain of what I thought my son was about to go through. She said, I didn't know if I was gonna ever see you again, if you was gonna get killed up in that place or die in that place. I didn't know if I was gonna ever see you. So to escape that pain, I started smoking crack. And so here I am thinking that all these years, I feel vindicated and justified of my pain and my anger. I supposed to feel like this, damn it. You my mother, you wasn't there for me. I should feel this pain, I should feel this anger. You wasn't there. And she telling me that one of the contributing factors of her becoming a straight up crackhead was trying to escape the pain of my little delinquent thug type behavior, and that blew my mind. And that set up in my mind the idea that we can't judge our parents. We don't know what the hell they go through and what they've been through. So that started the atonement process with my mother and I. And it released from me all the hatred and all the bitterness and all the judgment that I had of my mother. It was released at that time. So my mother, she kept doing what she doing though. She from the streets, you know? And she never stopped smoking the drugs. I left St. Louis, moved to Arizona. And I remember when I moved to Arizona, my mother, she was diagnosed with cancer. And the cancer had spread. And it had metastasized so much where she was defecating blood. And it was all in her breast. She had a tumor on her brain and she was dying. And I got a call from my sister one day. And I was in Arizona. She said, they gave Mom 8 weeks to live. I said, oh shit. I had my ex-wife and we had 7 children in the house. We jumped in the van and we hit St. Louis. I didn't even have all the money for gas. I was calling brothers. I'm like, I'm gonna be in New Mexico. They sending me money through MoneyGram at stores on the way. I'm like, I'm finna go to this city. I'm finna go to that city. That's for gas. I'm like, I gotta see Mom before she died. And I remember getting down to St. Louis and I sent one of my sons up in that room. And my son walking there, she looking, and she said, that's like one of Red boys. And she said, yo, Daddy here. And I walk up and I said, hey, Mama, what's going on? And she just hugged me. She was like 80 pounds, soaking wet. Real small, frail looking, weak. I never seen that cherry looking like that, so helpless. I started talking to my mother and I started doing like an interview. I said, Mama, do you have any regrets in life? If it's anything you wanted to do before you die, what would it be? I'm thinking she's gonna say, I wanna go to Jamaica, I wanna do this. I'm like, we got to make this happen, you know? And she said, no, I ain't got no regrets. She said, yeah, I got one regret. I said, what's that? She said, I wanna meet Louis Farrakhan before I die. I said, huh? You wanna meet the minister? She said, yeah. I said, why you wanna meet the minister? She said, because you was my worst child. You turned out to be my best child. And I wanna meet the man that's responsible for that. And that did something for me. Now, my mother, she was resilient. She was in hospice 3 times. That woman came up off hospice. The doctor's like, woman, we don't know how you making it. They gave her 6 weeks to live. She had a strong will. She came by the hospice 3 times when they wrote her off like she was gonna die. She came by the hospice that time. I go back to Arizona a year later. My mother, her and my twin brother still doing what they doing, drugs and things. Police kicked my mama's house in. I tell my mother, I said, Mother, why don't you come up to Arizona to see a naturopathic doctor that I had been seeing, Dr. Patina. I asked her to come see a naturopathic doctor. And she said, I ain't never been on an airplane. My mother was on New Year's. She woke up in St. Louis and went to sleep in Phoenix. It was a New Year's, 2009. I flew my mother to Arizona to see a naturopathic doctor because she had been through the chemo, the radiation, and it was killing her. I'm like, at least see this naturopathic doctor, one last hope, I'll pay for it out of my own pocket. She came to see a naturopathic doctor. She was there like 2 weeks, and my ex-wife called me and she said, oh, Mom in a lot of pain. And I was out working. I said, I'm on my way, call the ambulance. When I get there, they taking Mom out on the stretcher. And we get to the hospital. This a year later, my mother said, damn, I thought I was gonna get to meet Farrakhan before I died. She said, I don't think I'm gonna make it this time, baby. I said, Mama, you gonna make it. You a soldier. You strong, Mama. You been here before. She said, no, I think I'm gonna make it this time. She said, but I thought I was gonna get to meet Farrakhan before I died. Now, she said that the Farrakhan had just came into the city 2 days prior to that. And I said, man, I gotta get my mother to see the minister. So I called one of the minister security, and I told him what my mother said, because when I was interviewing her in St. Louis, she said this to me. She said that if I die before I meet the minister, if he can stand over my grave, I can feel his spirit. She said, or if I get close to him and touch the hem of his garment. And I told the security everything my mother had said. He said, bro, that's a compelling story. I'm gonna give you Minister Farrakhan's son number, Joshua Farrakhan. Call him and tell him what you just told me. I called Brother Joshua Farrakhan and I told him my mother's story and that she wanted her last wish before she died was to meet the minister. He said, brother, put that in a letter and go take it over to the house and give it to the minister's secretary. It was on a Friday. I gave the letter to the minister's secretary. Saturday morning, I get a call from the secretary saying, Assalamu alaikum. This is Sister Kim, the minister, Farrakhan's executive secretary. The minister want to honor your wish and come to your home. What's your address? I'm like, the minister finna come to my house? Like Farrakhan? I'm like blown away. He like bigger than life to me. Like he be with kings and queens and rulers and presidents and stuff. You gonna come see me? And then I say, well, my mother wanted to come over there to the house to where he was at. We call it the National House in Phoenix, Arizona. And the minister was like, can she walk? Is she okay? I'm like, yeah, she can walk. I can hold her up. So he said, tell me come over here to the next day, Sunday at 12:30. So we go over to the house, and I'll never forget this time. When we was at the house, Minister Farrakhan's wife walked down, Mother Khadijah, give my mother a kiss on the lips and hug her and say, sister, we praying for you, and we pray that God bless you to get through this. And then the minister and his son walk into the room, and he started praying with my mother, and he said some beautiful things to my mother. Now, interesting enough, my mother, she tell my ex-wife, she say, I can't go meet Farrakhan any kind of way. She said, I gotta look like a black queen when I meet the minister. So can you give me one of them pretty Muslim outfits that y'all be wearing? So she had her hair wrapped up. The only time in her life she wore like a cultural outfit was when she went to see the minister. She wanted to look a certain way when she go see the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And so she did. And I'll never forget, on our way out, I looked at the man and said, man, I love you. He said, I love you more. And I'm thinking to myself like, damn, this man's filled with kings and rulers, and he took time out for a crackhead and an ex-con. That was a very humbling experience for me to be able to experience that with the minister, writing the minister a letter. And so then my mother, she couldn't leave the street life alone. I mean, my mother, true to dope fiends, she was in Arizona. I've been there for a couple of years at that point. I didn't know who the drug man was. She was there a couple of weeks and found out who the crack man was. So she done found a local crack dealer and everything, and she doing that thing. I said, Mama, you can't do that in my house. I don't play that. I got children around and this and that. So she couldn't really handle the discipline structure of my home. She wound up going back to St. Louis. And when she went back to St. Louis, quiet enough, she told me, she called me. She was semi-illiterate. She said, Red, you ain't gonna believe this. I say, what? She said, my cancer went in readmission. I said, your cancer went in what? She said, readmission. I say, man, she said, the tumor on my brain is gone. She said, they say ain't no cancer in my body at all. I'm free of cancer. I say, man, God is real, you know? And she was so excited, but she couldn't leave that drug life alone. She couldn't leave the alcohol alone. She couldn't leave that street life alone. So a few years later, she lived an additional 7 more years. My mother lived 7 more years. And it's oddly enough that when she was dying, this time for real, she had got real sick. And I looked at my ex-wife, I said, I gotta go see Mom one day. She said, well, everything good? I said, I just gotta go see it. It was strong in me. The feeling was strong that I gotta go see my mother. I flew to St. Louis, didn't tell nobody I was coming. No, my family didn't know, my mother didn't know I was coming. I just flew down there, left the airport, and went straight to where my mother was at. And she was little, could barely eat. I talked to her, she was happy to see me. You know, some of her last meals, the last meal she had in her life, I provided for her. When I got back to Arizona, 2 days later, my sister called me and said, Mom just died. And I said, damn. And I was there for 4 days before she died, and I realized that her spirit was calling out for me. Like early on, I called out for my mother, and she wasn't there, you know, because she was struggling with drug addiction. But at the end of her life, she was calling, she wanted to see her son one more time. And she didn't call me on the phone. I felt it in my soul. And it was at that point that I realized that love, void of judgment, connects human souls. So me and my mother, we was connected because I loved her and I no longer judged her. And it created a spiritual connection where I felt her pain, I felt her suffering, and I wanted to be there to support her. And it made me realize again that we ain't qualified to judge our parents or nobody else. We don't know what they're going through, what they've been through. And that's my story. Thank you.